Everyone, guys. Day 3 of the Power Community Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Bootcamp. I'm super excited to be here. Big thanks to all the organizers of Power Community who organize such lovely events, especially focused on finance and operations. And it is also very exciting to see the participation from the global Dynamics community. It means a lot. It is a proof that people are willing to share and people are willing to learn from each other. So a big thanks to everyone who has joined us today to make this event a big success. A quick introduction about myself. So I am based in Melbourne, Australia. I'm a Dynamics 365 finance and operations and Power Platform enthusiast. I love solving business problems using this application. I'm currently working with PwC. I have a blog, growingthought.com. Feel free to check it out and leave your comments. You can connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. These are the QR codes. You can scan them now, or you can search me by my name. I do actively participate in Power Community Bootcamp. So I presented last year also, and it's such a pleasure to be in this community. And I also present in Dynamics user groups. I have also founded and I'm volunteer in a couple of more user groups, which are focused on knowledge sharing about Dynamics 365. So feel free to search these user groups and join us to increase the knowledge sharing. A quick introduction about the agenda which I'm going to cover today. So I will be talking about how we can use Logicapps to call Dynamics 365 ERP APIs. So how different type of patterns can be called through Logicapp. And I'll give you a demo which is like from scratch, and we'll configure Logicapps while doing the demo. So I'm trying to take that extra thrill today. Fingers crossed. I hope it's a platform as a service. So sorry, it's all serverless architecture, so it should work fine. What's not covered, just to be mindful that I'm not talking about best practices and the ALM part of Logicapps and also around licensing. So I'm focusing more on the core of how to use Logicapps to connect with finance and operations. So before I move forward, can I do just a quick attendees check? How many of you have actually used Logicapps with finance and operations? If you can give me a thumbs up in the Teams. Just want to see if people are there who have worked with Logicapps and finance and operations. Perfect, Andre. Yes, we have learned a lot from your blogs. Cool. So thanks, guys, for joining us. So I hope you can help us answer questions in the chat window. I gave you some tasks. And how many of us are here who want to really, who are new to Logicapps, basically who have never worked on Logicapps and trying to understand how we can work with F&O? Cool. All right, thanks for that. So what I have done for this session is today, guys, I have actually, just a disclaimer that I have hosted a cloud environment in my personal tenant. So I'm not using any sensitive data here. It's hosted on, I'm running on demo database of Contoso. So I will be using that and my own Azure portal. Just a quick baseline for everyone that different integration patterns which comes as a part of integration challenges are which are supported by Dynamics are synchronous. When we talk about synchronous, it's around OData. And when we talk about high volume asynchronous APIs, it's around DMF, package API, and recurrent API. We can create custom services using X++ classes, which can be exposed as a JSON or REST APIs. SOAP API. Sorry, I'm been speaking a lot since morning. So basically, I'm not trying to overwhelm here by putting everything around dual write, Power Platform integration, and Excel integration, but I'll be focusing on these capabilities today. A quick introduction to Logicapp. So basically, Logicapp is a cloud-based platform. It enables you to model your workflow. So this is a Microsoft Docs definition of Logicapp, and it's quite powerful and punchy. So that's why I kept it here. So if you try to read it, every word has a very deep meaning. And the key things are you can automate your workflows. You can integrate your apps, data, services, systems, right? It's highly scalable. It's for enterprise B2B scenarios. And it is a member of Azure Integration Services, which means that Logicapp is not only solving all the problems of your integration, it is a component of integration services. There are other things like service bus, event grid API, and which complement each other. All these tools complement each other, so they should be used in conjunction with each other. And then at the end, it's modern, it's cutting edge system across cloud and on-premise and hybrid environment. So you can see it's quite powerful platform, which we will look from Dynamics lens today. So what I will do in demo is we will first talk about what are the setups required in finance and operations and Azure portal to start talking to Dynamics. And then we will talk about configuring Logicapps to call OData APIs, DMF a package APIs, and we will talk about import and export scenarios. I'll try to be in time, so I'll quickly rush to the demo. So what I have is a finance and operations environment, which is basically running on a Contoso demo database, and I have Azure portal, which I have set up for this particular event. What I will be doing is first, let's talk about how to enable the connection between Dynamics and your Logicapps. As a part of that, what I'll do is I'll first create a Logicapp. So we go to create, we go to integration, create a Logicapp, and I will select my subscription because it's Power Platform Bootcamp. I'll use PCB. Okay, use PCB Bootcamp. Just a name here, and then I'll select the consumption model and I'll host it in Central India because my FNO is hosted there. Okay, so let's create this Logicapp. So while the Logicapp is being created, the key things which are needed to talk to finance and operation is basically you need to register a web application in your Azure portal, and then you need to define that application ID in finance and operations. So and that application ID and those credentials needs to be defined in Logicapp. So what I'm doing is first creating a structure of Logicapp, then we will create a web application and assign it here. So let's try to go to resource. So when you open, it opens this designer view. Here you have some templates which you can use. I will use a blank. So we'll start from scratch today. Okay. So to start, what I'll do is I'll select a schedule because I will trigger it while doing. And as a lesson learned, I'll just use it to run every 3 months. Otherwise, it keeps running. So what we can do is first step we have to do is it's like if you do any programming, you define your variables, right? So first I'll define these key variables which will be used again and again so that we don't have to type them every time. So for that we can do is a variables and we can say initialize a variable. So the 4 key variables we need to use is first is the audience. So audience is basically your Dynamics 365 finance and operations URL. So what I'll do is I'll copy this URL without the slash. That is an important thing. If you are trying to model Logicapps, remove that slash. Then we will add a new variable, which is my tenant ID. So you'll see as I'm modeling it, it's so intuitive that we can basically just design our workflow. That's how it ties back to the definition. So my tenant where I'm hosting it's a personal tenant, which is I'm using in one of my user groups. So I'll give this tenant. Then the next thing is I need an application ID and a secret. So to do that, let's go and create it. So I'm logging into the portal, and in order to create a new web application, I'll basically go to home and I'll create a new app registration. And here I will use the same keyword. Let's see, PC Bootcamp 0904. So I'll say PC Bootcamp 004. So basically just a name of this application. What you will do in real time is if you have multiple systems talking to Dynamics, it's a best practice to create one app registration for each application so that if you have to change it or it doesn't impact the other application. So this is the application ID here. I'm just copying it. I'm pasting it in Logicapp. So I'll say let's initialize application ID. And it's of type string. This is my application ID. What I have to do is I have to also define it in Dynamics 365. So in system administration, there is a page where you can define your Azure Active Directory. So here I'll go and create new, and I'll define this application ID. Let's say, and here I attach it to a user. I'm just keeping it simple. I'm attaching it to a admin user. Basically, what happens is this user ID enforces some security when the APIs are called. So if you are exposing an application just to access a particular module, you can model your security things in finance and operations. So from finance and operations side, yes, we just need to define this ID, and then the secret will go in my Logicapps. Now, before I create a secret, one important thing is we have to give this app the permission to access finance and operations. So we go to API permissions and we click on add permission. And then we go to here, we will see Dynamics ERP. So we select that, delegated permission, and I'm giving full access. So this will allow the application ID to talk to Dynamics. And then we go to secrets. And here I will create a new client secret. Let me just say PCB camp before. I'll blow it off anyway afterwards. So this value is important. You have to copy it, keep it safe because you can't actually access it once it has been saved. So I'll just initialize a variable, which is my secret. And then this is my string type. So I have saved till here. What I'll do is I'll just make sure here it's saved. So now this is the prerequisite. That's it. Nothing else is needed. So now I can talk to Dynamics. So let's see how we can talk. So there are two docs pages which I would highly recommend if you are building integrations to visit. One talks about OData. This is where you get to understand how you can call OData, the APIs, and in what syntaxes. So let's take the very simple one. So first is your root URL /data, which will give you all the data entities. And if you have to do this, you can actually directly do it in the browser. So if I go here and do data, sorry, I spelled data. So this is giving you a list of all the entities. So let's try to do this from Logicapps. So I'm trying to take a crawl, walk, run approach. So let's do our first call. Now, in order to do that, what I recommend is to use an HTTP connector. The reason is this is more generic in nature. There is a Dynamics Finance and Operations connector as well. But if you use HTTP connector, you can keep things at more generic level. And I think it's easy to maintain. And also, if you use a Dynamics connector, it creates a hop through another layer. So from performance perspective, also, it's better to use HTTP. So first, I'll do a get call. So if you look here, this is our address. So what I'll do is I have to get. Now here in the URL, instead of typing the whole, I can actually pick my audience here and say /data. I don't need to pass any headers, but I need to provide my security authentication. This is how my Logicapp will be authenticated when it reaches Dynamics. So here I will use Active OAuth directory. And this is where we have to give all these variables which we initialize. So I'll give my tenant ID. I will do my audience. This is my client ID. And this is my secret. Perfect. Let's give it a run. So I've saved it. And let's run this. So while this is running, we expect something, a list. So see, it got executed and you can see how quickly it went through. Let's look at our HTTP call, what happened here. So you'll see the inputs and you'll see the output. So if I click on show raw inputs. This is my call, which was made to Dynamics. And then if I go back, I can actually see my output here, show raw outputs. And this is where you will see it is similar to what we see on the browser. So I have got list of all the entities in the Dynamics. So this was our first Hello World scenario to talk to Dynamics through Logicapp. So let's take it to the next level. So let's pick our all-time favorite teensy-tiny entity of customer groups. So I'm using customer groups just because it's lightweight. Everyone knows what is the structure. You can use any entity basically in real time with it. So here, let's go and edit. And if you look at this, we can basically, if you have to call a particular entity, you have to append it after data. So here, what I'll do is in this, I'll say after data, call my customer groups. And let's say, and again, you can do this thing from the browser also. So if I come here and say, give me customer groups, this will give you a list of all the customer groups. But let's try to do it from Logicapps. So this is my Logicapp, which is trying to call customer groups. Let's run it. I'm not able to view chat if something is happening there. But yeah, it's all green. It looks good when you see green color, right? Everything is green. And you see it literally went so fast, 0 second. So we see we have done a get call to our customer group. And this is our output. So if we look at the outputs, you can see we have got the payload, which is having all the fields for the customer group data entity, which are being exposed. Now, if you notice, it returns you all the fields. There are ways to model your OData call. So for example, if you want a particular list of fields, then you can basically add filter in your call. So if you want to, let's say, call only get 2 fields, then you can actually do that. So let's try to do here. If you see, if you select 2 fields, you have to just append this question mark dollar select syntax, and then you can select your field. So let's try to do that. I will try to select customer group ID and description, so that when my, let's say if I'm doing a call where the entity is having a lot of fields, but I only want limited fields. So I can basically just come here and say dollar select equal to cust group ID and discussion and description. So let's save it. Let's run it. So by the way, what we are doing is a get call. Get is something like a read operation. So when you have to read data from Dynamics, you have to call get. So now it's red. I probably did something wrong. Let's go back and let's have a look. So I think I missed a question mark here. So let's put a question mark. That's a good thing. If your syntax is wrong, it won't work. So basically, you have messed up something, but it doesn't break other systems. So let's run it again. Yeah, all green. That's good. But if we look at our payload now, if we look at our response, I have only got 2 fields, right? So this is one of the way you can reduce the size of the payloads, which is getting transferred between Dynamics and Logicapps. What I want to show next is the create method through OData. So basically in that, in create, we have to call a post method. But before that, what I'll do is I'll quickly run this once more to copy the payload, which we will use actually to create a new customer group in finance and operations through Logicapp. So I'm just running it to get the data again. So we see the output. And here, the way I can copy is I can basically copy this payload till here. I can copy it. And then if I go back to my designer and I go to designer and say, OK, now I want to actually post. Now, when you have to do a post, you have to provide your content in a body. So here in the body, I'll say, OK, this is what I want to post. I can remove this OData tag. But basically, this is the definition which I want to post. So let's say I want to post, create a customer group, TCB01, and I want to call its description as TCB customers. just before we do, let's refresh our dynamics to make sure this doesn't exist. I'll just quickly show you there. So if I go to customer groups, so we don't have anything starting with P here. So let's save it and run this Logicap. So what this Logicap is doing a post call in finance and operation to create a record in customer group table based on the payload I have given. So you see it ran and it got successfully completed. So the success response code is 201. Let's see, the output is here. This is created. If we go to Dynamics and if we refresh, we have got the data. So this was around data, which I wanted to share. This is a way we can actually use OData. Now, I'm not talking about best practices here. There is a lot. OData is quite a big topic. We can have full day talking about it. Let's move ahead and let's talk about the DMF package API, where things will start getting more interesting, and we will actually see more complicated scenarios on how to push and pull data from Dynamics. So in order to call DMF package API, the prerequisite is that you have to create some data management import and export projects. So as a part of preparation, I've created two projects in my instance. One is to import, one is to export. First, we will try to do an import, then we will do an export. So if I go back to quickly on my PPT, the import process is a two-step process. You first have to call an API to say, hello, Mr. Dynamics, import my file. This is the location. And the second step is to check the status. Now, in order to create a file, now this is one of the, I would say, design of package API that you have to provide a zip file. So in order to create a zip file, what I will do is I will just download from my job history, one of the last executed data package for customer group. So I'm just downloading a package which I will use to push back in Dynamics from Logicapps. So in order to do that, what I have also done is created Azure blob storage, which I will be using in my Logicapp to push this zip file. So in real-time scenarios, this file can be placed in your inbound folder from external systems. So let me just upload this file here. So I've just downloaded the package and it's in my downloads. I'll upload it here. So let's say now this is a zip file we have to push in Dynamics through Logicapp. So what we'll do is, let's go back to that Logicapp which we created. I'll basically modify the same Logicapp. We will continue using the same. Otherwise, we'll have to create from the beginning. Okay, so the first step, and again, Docs is your friend here. So if you go to this page on data management package API, this has all the syntaxes and things you need. So we have uploaded up the package to the blob storage. Now we need to actually call API, which is called import from package. So if you read this, it is having this. This is the API which we have to call. So let's create this. So let's go back. I'll in fact just rename this one the import from package. Now here you will see import from package is a post operation. So we change it to post, which is fine. Now I will change my URL here. So the URL which we have to call is, now before this we have our Dynamics URL. After that we have to put this. So we copy it from here, put it here. Right, so I'm saying Dynamics import from this package. But from where am I getting the package? Where is the file? So I think what we need to do is basically, if you look at this definition, we have to pass a body. And in that body, we have to give a URL where my package exists. So let's just copy this, and then we will create the URL for this. Before we create URL, other fields which we need is to give the definition group ID. This is basically your data project name. So I have created an import data project and an export data project. Because we are calling import API, we need to give the name of the import data project. So I will copy this name here. Go back to Logicapp. I will give this name. Now, execution ID is optional. Even though I don't have execution ID, I still have to keep that tag. Otherwise, it might basically complain that I am not giving anything in execution ID. Now, when we talk about execute, what I can give is true override. I'll just give true. I'm keeping it simple. Legal entity, I'll say USMF. Now the key part, how do I get the package URL? So before this, what I'll do is I'll add a step. Because I uploaded my package in blob storage, I have that file in blob. So there is an Azure blob storage connector here, and there is action to get a SAS URI by path. So I'll use this. And here what I have to give is the name of my Azure Blob Storage, where the file is kept. I'll give it a path. Again, bare bones happy flow scenario. In real time, you can model it based on your triggers and runtime. So this will give me an output here. So what I can do is my package URL is basically here. You will see the web URL. This is my web URL for that output. So now this is my call ready to run. So let's save it and see what happens. So before that, I'll quickly show you the history of my import project. There are a few calls because I was just testing, but the last one ends with 9B. Let's trigger it and see what happens. Sorry, I'm rushing a bit, but I'll try not to rush too fast because we have to run with the export scenario also. Yeah, it's all green, looks good. So what has happened here? In my import from package, I have called, and if you see the output is a value. This is my execution ID. So if I go back to Dynamics and refresh my run history, I'll actually see a new job has been queued in and which is executing. So basically, I have inputted a file in Dynamics through Logicapp to import. But it doesn't stop here, right? So we have got an execution ID, but we want to check the status after some time. So what we need is we need to extract this execution ID from this payload. And then there is another API which we can call, which is used to check the status. So to check the status, the API is called, I think it's get execution status, get execution summary status. So let's try to call this API. But before that, we need to extract this value of the execution ID. So let's do that. There are two ways to actually do it. I'll just first show the easy way. You copy this response, go back to your designer, and let's, because it's a JSON, what we can do is we can do a compose method, which is basically what we can read this JSON. So we go to data operations and we say parse JSON because I am reading the response. So one of the good practices, you rename the block so that you know what is happening. Read the response. So what is the content? Content is the output from my import from package. So content is my body. How do I read? What is the structure? What we just copied, the response, so we can paste it in the sample payload, say, okay. Now that payload will be read in this response. And then what I can do is I can initialize a variable which says, okay, this is my execution ID. So this is just the name of the block, but the actual variable name is here. Execution ID. This is a string, and this is the output from my read the response. So read the response, output is here. So this is the value. Now this will give me my execution ID. Okay, good till now. What we'll do is, because we know it's a DMF API, it's not like synchronous. See, it was executing. If I refresh, it says ended. So it takes some time. So let's add a bit of a timer here, which says, okay, let's wait for 30 seconds before I check my status. So we do a 30 seconds delay here, and then we call our API to check the status. Now to check the status, again, we will be calling an HTTP API. HTTP API, I'll rename it to get execution status summary. Method is, now if you see here, get execution status summary is a post method. So we do a post method here. What is my URL? My URL is in my variable, which is my audience. And then after that, I need to put this. So this is a URL which says from data management entities get execution status summary. So I paste it here. Now, along with this, as always, we need to make sure we are securely calling this API. So we will add our security credentials, same thing which we did last time. And that's where I like to declare these as variables, because otherwise, if you enter it every time, there are chances you can do some typo errors or things may not flow properly. So it's better to have them initialized in the beginning. But along with this, I need to pass my execution ID. So here we have the sample payload, execution ID. So let's put this here. And now what is my execution ID? My execution ID is stored in my variable execution ID, which is this. Yep, that's it. So let's run it. Let's run that file again. So at the moment, last file was, which was pushed, last execution ID was ending with 5e. Let's see, see a new one came in 4c. Let's look in Logicap. The execution ID we have initialized ends with 4c. This is 4c. Yeah, so that is correct. Now it's waiting. It's waiting for 30 seconds. We wanted to wait to make sure that the processing is complete in Dynamics. In real time, you may have like a for loop or a while loop, which checks every 5 or 10 seconds, depending on your scenario. But I'm just, so now this is ended here, which is good. And hey, yeah, let's see, it completed the delay and it got my execution summary status, which is succeeded. So this is a good thing. So we are able to now push the file in finance and operations through Logicapp, and we are able to get the status. So that brings to the end of the second demo, which I wanted to do. Now I want to show you one more scenario, which is taking it again to the next level. Now we are going to export a file, a zip file from Dynamics, and we'll try to put it in our blob storage. This is where I think once you are able to achieve that, your confidence level will increase that, yep, you are able to model HTTP connector in all the possible scenarios. So to do the export, it has a bit more to it. So basically, when you export, let me bring up my slide. See if I can bring it here quickly. Yeah, so when we export, we basically have to first tell Dynamics, export a package, then we check the status. Then what we do is we get a exported package URL. So this is another call we have to do to Dynamics, which returns us a long URL, which has some security tokens embedded into it, which can be used to access the package file. And then once we are able to access that file, we can save it into the blob storage. So let's try to model this scenario. So let me edit my Logicap. Okay. Maybe I'll drink some water. Okay. So now in this case, I don't have to push a file. So I'll just remove this block. Now to export a package, what we have to do is, first thing is we have to call export from package. So remember, this page is your friend. Export from, see, export to package. Sorry, not from package, it's export to package. So let's call this API. To do this, so let's rename this to export. And what is my export to package API definition? It's a post method with this URL in the end. So I'll do this, and my audience is my URL, and this. Right. Now, if I have to export, I have to tell Dynamics what needs to be exported, and for that, I have to pass this body. One thing I noticed here, there is a slight, I would say, a typo error here in docs that it's missing the quotes, and if I run without quotes, then it fails. So I'll just use this body. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to find one more thing. Yeah. So we go here, go back and say export to package. Now this is definition group ID is the first parameter. This is same as my data export project name. So if I go back to Dynamics, I have this project name, which I have actually basically, which is a export data project. So I go back and say export this particular data project. Now package name, I can give anything. This is basically by what name the package gets created. Execution ID is basically blank here. Re-execute, this is where I found an issue with docs. I have to give this. I'll say true. Legal entity is USNF. Right, so let's go with this, and I have this here. What I will do is, okay, we have get execution summary status here, and we are reading the response. We are generating. Let's keep it like this. I think this should work, and we will get an execution status summary after 30 seconds. So let's save it. Yeah, let's run it. While this is getting keyed, let's look at our export project execution history. Let's see. It has got an execution ID, which is, so this is like some time stamped 93657. Oh, 93657, this is the one. So we have got an execution ID and the target status is ended actually. So let's see while the delay operation completes. Okay, it worked. So what we have got the execution status as succeeded, which is good. So if you see, we can reuse these things once we create. So now Dynamics has done the export. So what I try to do is test my Logicap in bits and pieces because it's a dev environment. I can export it multiple times. But so I'm good till here. So now what I have to do is once the package is exported, I need to get the URL. So in order to get the URL of the package which Dynamics has exported, there is this REST API, which is called as get exported package URL. So let's call this. So we go back to our Logicap and we go back to designer mode and we add a new step. Using an HTTP connector and we rename it. Now get exported package URL is a post method. So let's post. URL is my audience, and then I will define this thing here, get exported package URL. And then what it needs is in the body execution ID for which we need to find the URL. So what we do is in the body, we paste the execution ID. Now execution ID is in my variables here. So I will use execution ID here. And I need to authenticate. So I need to provide my security credentials again, which is Active Directory. You have to be a bit careful here because if you select a wrong variable, the call will fail. So take a deep breath. Client ID is application ID. Deploy secret. Okay, so now I am ready with my get my exported package URL call. So let's run it and see what happens. So running this, so the last one was 93657. Let's rerun it. Yep, it started a new export and see, actually it ended very quickly. So if you go in and see, it took literally like 3 seconds for Dynamics to do that. And we know it's a small package, so that's fine. So let's go back and see, yeah. And if you see these times here, right, if you see it's so scalable, it's literally taking 0 seconds to do like call these APIs and get a response back from Dynamics. This is a delay which we purposefully put. It's the longest component in my logic app. But yeah, that's good. It's all green. So I've got my execution status summary as green. Succeeded. And now let's see what this API returns. So now this API returns me a value. Let's zoom it in. So now this returns a value which is a long URL. So what is this? Is basically a path from where I can download my zip file. So if I copy this and put it in my browser, see, I'll be able to download this file. See, it started downloading the file. So this URL has a security token embedded in itself. So when you do, if you have to get that file from Logicapps, how do we do that? So let's take it to that level. Let's do it again. So now in order to get the content of the file, you won't find that in docs, but I'll just do a new HTTP call. And the reason you don't find it in docs is because it's a very simple call. So let's say get file contents. So this is a get method. And the URL you have to give is that URL from the response which you got earlier. Now, in order to extract that URL, there are two ways. Either I can do the same thing, read the response, initialize a variable, but there is one more way actually, which is around using expressions in Logicapps. So you can actually avoid putting a lot of blocks and use expressions to do that. So let's try to do it with an expression at this time. So the expression for that is basically what you have to do. I'll actually just copy this name because I will need this name of the block from where which I need to put in my expression. So the expression for this will be from the body of my this get exported package URL, bring out my value. That's it. See, it's body, and that's the thing. If you do a typo, then it might fail. So that's it, right? So now I have created an expression to extract that URL from the response. So now I will get file contents. Let's test it. Just keeping a time check. We have, I think, 15 minutes. We are good. Once this is over, I'll do some wrap up and then we can open up for Q&A. Okay, so let's see what's the execution ID here. So 9:43:22. Let's go here, refresh. 9:43:22. It got queued. Let's wait 30 seconds. We have that much time in this session. Yeah. Okay, so this is done. So get exported package URL and then get file contents is also successful. So what has happened here is I've called a get method to get my file contents. And if you look at the output, now this is an output of a zip file. How is it being represented here? But see, it's all these non-human readable characters. It's basically the content of your zip file, which is returned. So now the next step and the last step for us is to save this in the blob storage. So to do that, what I'll do is in the blob storages, which I created for this demo, I've created a folder to store this. So let me quickly open that folder just to make sure it's empty and we don't get any confusion when it's added here. So at the moment, you can see this outbound folder is all empty. So let's try to add this file to the blob storage. So in order to do that, what we will do is we go back here, we add a new step, and we do the blob. So let's do the blob creation. We go to Azure Blob Storage, and we will create a blob here. So where I'm creating is, so this is coming from my connection settings. and I want to create in my outbound folder, and the name of the file. So here you can either generate it at the runtime, but let's say first group export.zip, and the thing is content. So what are the contents here? Now the contents are from my get file contents and its body. Let's save it and let's run this. Yeah. So while it's running, let's look at dynamics. So last one was 9:43:22. Now it has started a new export at 9:46, which should be our execution ID. So now you might have noticed I'm using the same connector HTTP, just changing the parameters and just changing what's going in the body. That's it. Rest all is defined on docs. Rest all is can be initialized as variables. So it's really simple to do this. So yeah, it's green. Looks good when it's green, right? So let's see what it says here. Create blob. Its output. So let's go back to our blob storage and refresh it. And we have got our zip file. So we have exported a data project, create a zip file into our blob storage. So if I'll just quickly download this, I can basically download this zip file, cust group export.zip. I'll just quickly open it and show you that it has the data which we wanted. My downs. So go to my downloads. This is my cust group export. Let me extract it here. And if I open, it has a manifest, package header, and a file. We know this is the way it is in Dynamics. And if you see, it has all my data, and you will notice it has the data which we just created for the through OData in our initial call. So now we are able to export data from Dynamics using Logicapps, and pretty much we have just used HTTP connector throughout this whole demo, right? So if you see, just to do a quick recap, I've defined my variables in the beginning. So here it goes all my Azure tenant, application ID, secrets. I showed you how we create a new application ID and secret. Then how we basically call the HTTP, use the HTTP connector to call it, and you can use your variables everywhere. Then how to read a response, how to create a schema using the sample payload from the previous response, then how to initialize a variable, how to add delays in between, how to get your summary. And here you can see how we have actually used an expression instead of parsing the JSON and initializing a variable. And then we created the file. So that was most of the demo part. I quickly come back to my slides just to talk through about few things. So my mouse is a bit weird today, but let me quickly go back to my presentation mode. Okay. So what I wanted to talk next is very quickly few things to consider when you are trying to use Logicapps in your integration. So when you are about to go live, you have to submit this assessment to Microsoft, and accordingly they will size your infrastructure. So when you are doing your calculations for integrations, don't look at the number of integrations or the volume of that integration. Try to look at how many times you are going to call Dynamics for those integrations. So for example, we have called like 4 times to export a file. So it may sound like one API to export file, but it's actually 4 calls going to Dynamics. So consider how many times you are calling Dynamics back and forth. Of course, use error handling and best practices to improve performances. So Logicapp has a lot of capabilities where you can run things in parallel, do error handling, check statuses, and move things in a different way. So design your workflows accordingly. I personally prefer to use HTTP connector for all the REST APIs. If you are trying to consume a business event from finance and operations, then basically there is a new connector coming up for Dataverse, which Microsoft is also recommending that people should start learning it and start using it. That way, basically, this Dataverse connector will enable you to receive business events from multiple Dynamics applications, not only finance and operations. And last but not the least is the throttling setup. So having multiple applications ID for different applications, like one ID for a application is recommended, because then you can define your priorities for throttling, and based on your the time in your business. For example, if you are running a sale during Christmas period, and at that time you want to prioritize the APIs coming from a particular applications, you can do that. So these are a few things you should take care of. I will jump into Q&A, and thank you for listening to me. I hope this was helpful. Okay, do we have any questions? I'll stop sharing. We have 10 minutes.
There, Rachit. Okay, let's take a look at the questions. Okay, there are a few questions. Let's look from the top. Okay, so we have the first question from the top, which is by Parag, who's asking, if I want to create 10 different Logicapps, then do I need to create a variable again for client ID and secret key?
I think you can centralize these type of configurations somewhere. And you can use Azure Key Vault basically. So like I was doing just a demo, but I think these key vaults and secrets should these IDs and secrets should reside in Key Vault. So you can try to centralize it. Yeah. Or maybe you can use Azure function. You can just call one Azure function which is returning you things. So you can play around with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Alexi's asking how to deploy Logicapps, which I have created and tested on the dev environment to the test stage live environment.
Yeah, so there are ways to move Logicapps around. I think there are different ways. You can clone a Logicapp, or you can export it as a template and re-import it. So maybe just try to use those features. Yeah.
So Parag is asking, can we export data for multiple companies using DMF package?
So data for multiple company, you might have to create a data project which exports data from multiple companies, and then you can call that DMF package from Logicapps. So that is something you might need to either do a development or configure it. There are ways to configure cross-company data projects. You can use that, but definitely you can do it.
Okay, so Michael is asking, what if the case would be to loop through all legal entities in Dynamics? Would you create some loop in Logicapps that would be dynamic, or should we define fixed lists of entities?
Totally depends on your scenario. You can loop through it, but I think if you loop through it and you have like 300 legal entities, there are customers who have like 300 legal entities in Dynamics, it can slow down. It also depends on what's your use case is, like why are you going to loop through all the legal entities? If you can somehow predetermine which legal entity you want to work, you can then take that part out of your Logicap. But if you have to do a defined fixed list, it won't be real time. You can have somewhere in Dataverse, and you can create that particular table. But there are multiple options available, Michael. So it really depends on your case, what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, so Kumar is asking, it all just went above my head, but great to listen to. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
So Sahib is saying, over the past couple of months, I've seen a lot of noise about using secrets in integrations, as your security teams are against using the secrets, mostly in the big organizations, and instead ask for using certificates. Any thoughts on this?
See, that's why these all capabilities exist. Big enterprises have a lot of security restrictions, and enterprise architects, they have their guidelines which they have to obey. So there is capability to use a secret, and there is also capability to use certificates. So I think it's fine. Like I have seen customers who have used like double keywords just to bring in additional layer of security. So you can, I mean, you have all these Azure integration and Azure platforms, and there are multiple options to store secure things, not only just keywords. So I think that's more of an Azure question to look into. Yeah.
Okay.
Hope that answers. Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, John is asking, OData major links to us. Several key pages I really want to have. Sorry, John, could you rephrase that question? OData major links to us. Several key pages I really want to have. Could you just rephrase your question, please, John? It's I'm not sure if that makes sense to you, Rachit.
Not able to make sense. So if you can rephrase, John.
Yeah, that'll be helpful. Yeah. Okay. So John is saying for data migration by using Logicapps, what is the limitation?
Data migration by Logicapps. See, you can use Logicapps to automate your data loads. I think it's not about a limitation. It's more about how you plan your data migration, because if you are doing a data migration, it's a very different ball game to creating an integration. So data migration has a lot of things like in which sequence you want to import and do you want to abort if something fails. So it's more about how you want to, like what you want to load. There are default data migration templates available in finance and operations, which you can use to basically have multiple entities sitting in one package. So I think that's a benefit here, that you can actually push data from multiple entities using one data project. So the example which I took today was having only one entity inside it, which was a very simple customer group entity. But in real time, your data project can have, let's say, 10 entities defined in the sequence. You can push all the data for all those entities using one call. So I think it's beneficial to use Logicapps if you want to automate your data migration, but you really need to test. It's something which never goes right in the first go. So there will be a hit and try, and you will have to repush it multiple times to identify how to smoothly push that data. But definitely use Logicapps if you want to automate few things.
Okay,
So
the final
Logicapp.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Final question by Pradhan, who's asking, are there any major differentiators to be considered when to use a Logicapp versus a Power Automate flow?
Yeah, nice question, sir. There are considerations. So Logicap is mostly used for enterprise level integration. So if you are having a very complex integration landscape, I would recommend using Logicapps. Whereas if you are having a simple landscape where you are only talking to one or two systems, maybe you can use Power Automate. But yes, you may need to dive deep into the differences of Logicapps and Power Automate on when to use what. Yeah, hope that answers.
Yeah, we do actually have a dedicated session just on that, Saurabh. I'll share the link with you. So, okay, so look, so I think, Rachit, what you've done today is you've done a very great introduction on how to develop using Logicapps for F&O. And I have to say, Logicapps does serve a very large percentage of the development efforts for F&O, because if you can imagine, there's a lot of integration across F&O for different needs, whether it's for payroll, whether it's for HR integrations, whether it's for integrating across different, CRM, ERPs, and so I see it as a it plays a very large percentage of the development effort. So I think it's highly valuable. So I just want to thank you, Rachit, because I think you did a very, very well presented, breakdown of how to, get started with Logicapps. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Raj. And yeah, I'm looking forward to other sessions, and a great event. Looking forward to it. And thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachit.
you.
And please don't forget to share your contact details in the chat before you leave.
Sure, I will.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, so that was Rachit, always doing great sessions.